Lawmakers in Washington are at odds over war spending. President Biden wants to pledge another $60 billion to Ukraine in its war against Russia. And members of Congress are also calling for more U.S. aid in Israel. I'm joined now by U.S. Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course. Good to see you.
Yes, you wrote an op-ed. It was posted by the New York Times on Friday, where you basically do the math on the resources and the money Ukraine needs to fight and win its war against Russia. You say the president's $60 billion aid package won't come close to covering the cost of what's needed for them in the war. What can you and other lawmakers agree on to keep Russia from taking over Ukraine?
Yeah, so Lindsay, the point that I made in this op-ed is actually pretty simple, that we've got to focus on what is it that Ukraine actually needs, and is America able to provide it? Well, they need millions of artillery shells. We can provide maybe a few 100,000 a year, but we can't provide millions. They need thousands of Patriot missiles. We can provide a few hundred per year, but certainly not a few thousand. And given that reality, given that we can't supply Ukraine the things that it needs to win the war, to say nothing of some of the corruption problems in that country, shouldn't we be using our diplomatic leverage to sue for peace here, to try to promote a peaceful settlement, to stop the killing and prevent this thing from escalating, God forbid, into World War III? That's been my view for a very long time. And unfortunately, the people I think who just want us to continue to throw money at the problem, they've created a country that is stretched way too thin. We do not have the resources to support a war in the Middle East, a war in Europe, a war in East Asia, God forbid, a war that might affect our own security interests directly. So instead of stretching this country too thin, let's engage in diplomacy, de-escalate this conflict. I think that's possible. You just need some leadership that's willing to do it.
Now, it is reported that House Speaker Mike Johnson was going to bring forward 3 separate bills on funding for Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine, the opposite of what Mitch McConnell actually had proposed. Could the separate war funding strategies work?
Well, actually, I wish that's what the speaker wanted to do, Lindsay, and you're right. Those reports are out there. Just a few minutes ago, actually, we saw reporting that what the speaker is going to do is effectively hold sham votes on these proposals and then package them all together and send them to the Senate as one big package. I think it's a huge mistake. We actually need to have discrete individual debates about each of these topics. Israel is a huge question. Ukraine is a huge question. Taiwan and East Asia are huge questions. The idea that you can shove all this stuff together and send it to the United States Senate, I think deprives the American people of a debate, which is what we really need here. The other thing I say, Lindsay, is that, some of these conflicts require the same things. So Israel needs things that are used in Ukraine. Taiwan needs things that are used in Ukraine. So if we're just shoving all this stuff together, we're not dealing at all with this fundamental issue of America being stretched too thin, which I think is the most important debate for us to have as a country. $1.7 trillion in debt. We can't fight 4 different wars in 4 different continents. We've got to focus.
Back here in Ohio, Norfolk Southern reached a $600 million settlement in a class action suit over the impact of its train derailment in East Palestine. Do you believe that that number is high enough?
Well, look, it's a good first step, Lindsay, but it's not everything. We know that there's been a lot more damage to the community in East Palestine than just $600 million. So I think it's great that people are getting this money. Of course, we want to make sure it goes to the people who are affected and not by the trial lawyers. And hopefully the judge who's administering the settlement will make sure of that. But we've got railway safety we've got to make better in this country. We've got additional resources and supports that we've got to give for people. And I fear, unfortunately, Lindsay, you're going to have a lot of folks who are dealing with health problems for a long time after this. So this is a good first step, but it's only a first step.
Now, your Railway Safety Act remains stalled. What is the latest on getting it to the floor for a vote?
Well, we need Chuck Schumer to bring it up for a vote. I think we have the votes to pass it, Lindsay. I feel quite confident about that, but we do need the majority leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, to bring this thing up for a vote. I do think he will do that. I don't think he's lying to me. I could be wrong, but he has promised me a vote, and when that happens, I think we'll get it out of the Senate.
President Biden wants to triple the current Chinese tariff rate on steel and aluminum imports. Do you agree with that move?
So I haven't seen that move. I think Donald Trump has actually proposed this first. And so if President Biden is going to do what Trump has already proposed, I think that would be a good idea. But we know the Chinese are engaging in illegal dumping. We know they're skirting labor laws. They're not paying their workers good wages. They're also skirting environmental regulations. It's one of the dirtiest economies in the entire world. So, yeah, I absolutely think Ohio steel workers can make a much better product, and we ought to be making sure that they've got good jobs. But more importantly, even than their jobs, we got to make sure that America doesn't become reliant on the Communist Chinese Party to make the stuff we need.
Senator Vance, thank you for joining us.